A car is a vehicle of propulsion that moves when the engine is started and the gas pedal is pressed down. Here's how that happens. When you turn a key or push an engine on button, it turns a starter that is coupled to it. The purpose of the starter is to turn the engine just enough to get it to run on its own. So when the starter is turned, it pushes out a smaller gear. This small gear turns a much bigger gear which is formed around a flywheel. This flywheel is coupled to the engine. So when the starter is turned, it turns the flywheel which then turns the engine just enough for it to start. This flywheel then stores the energy from the rotations of the engine. So now that we know how the engine gets started, we can talk about what it does when you push down on the gas pedal. When you press down on the gas pedal, it releases air into the engine through a throttle valve. So the more you press down on the gas pedal, the more air is released into the engine. Your engine has a computer that controls it called the Engine Control Unit, or the ECU. Once the ECU senses you increase the airflow to the engine, it'll increase the amount of fuel going through the fuel injector into the engine. The fuel released is pressurized, so it can burn easily. The ECU monitors the engine's air and fuel intake to make sure it's working properly. If there's an irregular pattern of fuel splashes injections, it could get onto the other parts of the engine, which could damage it. That's why you should gently push down on the gas pedal to accelerate the car, because fuel will be injected smoothly. So here's how the gasoline gets into the engine. First, the gasoline can be poured into the gas tank via a small hole in the side of the vehicle. Next, the gas enters the fuel pump. This fuel pump pulls the gas out of the tank and it is pushed through the fuel lines which can carry the fuel to the engine. The fuel lines are specifically ran through places where the fuel will not be exposed to other components and won't get too hot. On the way to the engine, the gas will have to pass through the fuel filter. This fuel filter removes any debris or impurities from the gas. This is important because it helps keep your engine clean. The gas then reaches the engine, but how does it get into the combustion chamber? The combustion chamber is where the energy needed to move the vehicle is created. Here's how the gas gets into the combustion chamber. Once the fuel reaches the engine bay, it gets to the fuel injectors. These injectors are linked to the spray nozzle. These injectors are like the spray nozzle of a hose, meaning that the fuel comes out in a fine mist. This misty fuel mixes with air, and that fuel-air mixture passes through the inlet manifold. The inlet manifold is a part of the engine that leads the fuel-air mixture to the combustion chamber. Once inside the combustion chamber, the fuel-air mixture starts to burn. The exploding reaction of the gas burning is what moves the pistons. Then the high-temperature gas is fed to the engine, where it is expelled as exhaust with great speed, creating thrust. So the combustion chamber helps move the pistons. Here's how the pistons work and what they do. The pistons are fixed in a cylinder. When the fuel and air mixture is exploding or combusting, it pushes the piston up and down. This up and down movement rotates a crankshaft, which is a shaft that converts the piston's up and down movement into rotational movement. This rotational movement gets transferred through the gearbox, then through the propeller shaft. The propeller shaft is a shaft that transfers the torque of the rotations of the crankshaft to the differential box. The differential box splits the engine torque two ways, which allows the wheels to spin at different speeds. Finally, the differential box transfers the motion to the rear wheels, which allows them to move. So now we know how the car moves, but how does it change direction? Here's how the steering of the car works. The steering process is fairly simple. When you turn the steering wheel, it rotates a rod. This rod is connected to another rod using a joint. This joint converts the rotational movement of the steering wheel rod to horizontal movement of the wheels. This allows the wheel to turn left and right. In four-wheel drive, a computer turns the rear wheels, however they can't turn as far as the front wheels. Now we know how a car can turn, but how does it let other people know it's turning? The car uses blinkers. Blinkers are flashing lights that show the direction of the car is turning. If it's turning to the right, the blinker will flash flash on the right hand side. If it's turning left, it will flash on the left hand side. So here's how the blinkers work. The blinkers require electrical power. So when the blinkers are activated, an electrical circuit is completed. This allows the power to flow onto the front and rear lights on the selected side. That's how the blinkers work. But what if the car needs to reverse or park? Here's how the gears work. When you shift the gear to reverse, the shifter slides a sliding gear to the reverse gear in the gearbox. This allows the car to move in reverse. When you want to park the car, the shifter slides the sliding gear away from the other gears to avoid transmission to the rear wheels. This means the car can't move. Now we know how the car moves, and we can talk about the add-ons like the radio, phone, windshield washer, wipers, and AC. The radio in your car works like this. Radio waves are magnetic energy generated by a transmitter and an antenna. Your car has an antenna that is built to pick up these magnetic waves and sends them to the car's radio receiver. This receiver isolates and amplifies the radio waves, aka the program that you want to listen to. Now the phone in your car works like this. There's either Bluetooth or an aux cable to connect your phone to the car's audio system. Then when you get on a call, the system uses an internal microphone that allows you to talk to other people. You will be able to hear the person through the car's audio system and talk to them through the internal mounted microphone. The AC in your car works like this. The car's air conditioning system does not actually create cold air. It works by first starting at the compressor. The compressor compresses or pressurizes the refrigerant in the car to a liquid state from its original gas state. This liquid refrigerant circulates through tubes in the condenser. The condenser exposes the refrigerant to fresh air coming from outside the car. There's a temperature gradient between the air and refrigerant, so the heat moves from the refrigerant to the air. Next, the cold refrigerant moves into the accumulator. This removes any moisture left in the refrigerator and leads to cooler refrigerator. Now the cool liquid flows into the expansion valve. The expansion valve reduces the pressure of the refrigerant, allowing it to move easily through the evaporator. When the liquid is flowing through the evaporator, air from the passenger compartment gets drawn into the evaporator. The refrigerator and air become exposed to each other, and since the refrigerant is colder, the heat from the air gets moved to the refrigerant. The leftover cold air gets blown into the passenger cabin by the fans. Your headlights work like this. There are 3 different types of headlights. The incandescent lamps use electricity to heat up a filament in the gas, producing the light. However, it uses a lot of energy and a lot of it can be wasted. The halogen headlights are the most common lights used today. Halogen lights work in the same way as incandescent lights, but they waste far less energy. Finally, in high-intensity discharge headlights, or HID, a mixture of rare metals and gases are heated to produce a bright white glow. These headlights are about 2 to 3 times brighter than the halogen lights, so they can be a pain to other drivers. However, the HID lights are expensive, so they are mostly found on expensive vehicles. Now we can move on to the exterior wipers and windshield washers. Your wipers work like this. They are connected to a motor which is attached to a worm gear. This worm gear transmits enough force to a long rod that moves the wipers. Finally, here's how your windshield washer works. It's fairly simple. A washer pump attached to a reservoir. A water pump is attached to a reservoir containing washer fluid. This pump pressurizes the washer fluid so it can spray out of the holes on the front hood and onto the windshield. Now we know how a car fully works, from the combustion chamber in the engine to the washer fluid that washes your windshield. I hope this is helpful for you. Thank you.